Hey everyone, this is Kit with Chicago Reacts. Usually on this channel, we react to a lot of lighthearted, funny content. But this video is going to be a little bit different. I was kind of given somewhat of a heads up of what it's going to be about. And it has to deal with, I guess, a soldier who served overseas in Iraq and in Afghanistan as well, I believe. But I guess it's going to be talking about his experience being a gunner. The video that we're going to be reacting to is Guy in VR talks about their worst day as a soldier by Syrmor. I hope I said your name correct. This is going to be maybe a difficult video to react to. When it comes down to stuff like this, especially with PTSD and soldiers' experience overseas, Marines, airmen, everyone who served. It's very important to hear their perspective and story. And if you ever have the time or can help out at your VA or help donate to, groups and charities that help out veterans and their families, please do so. So I'm going to get this video set up. This might be a little difficult for me to react to. So I'll keep stoic, but I'll try and, when I add my commentary, and I want to make sure at least when the soldier's done speaking, I'm not interrupting him mid-sentence, so and also check out the original video as well. Please do so. I think it's important. So let's go ahead and get this video set up and well, let's walk through it and listen.
Gunners would break, self-identify for like alcoholism or PTSD, and they obviously weren't flying anymore on gunships. Rotator cuff issues, back issues, knee issues. The gunner job itself was actually really hard on the body, and it broke a lot of people. People tried to get out of it, but for gunners, it wasn't easy to get out of. We actually used to make jokes about it, like the gunship flew on cancer. The cancer rate in the gunship community is actually pretty high because we have like some of the most cancerous substances known to man on there. They had Air Force quality or some kind of medical people come out and do like an air test while we were doing live fire on the gunship. The amount of lead in the air while we were shooting was so high that they were like, you should be on oxygen literally all the time. And we weren't. And we didn't, even with that advice. Towards my last deployment, I felt like death when I woke up. I'd have headaches near.
Sorry, I know I said I wouldn't pause, while he's speaking, but I guess there's a reason why they have it animated like this. I guess the soldier's Anakin Skywalker or VR avatar, and I guess the person interviewing him is like Winnie the Pooh. So I mean, I'm not familiar with this YouTube channel, but boy, oh boy, when you're hearing the story and then when you see the video, I mean, talk about contrasting images. I mean, I guess if that's done on purpose, I mean, way to keep the viewer engaged, but my goodness, those gunners were being exposed to all that dangerous material and the amount of lead too. I have no idea what to really respond or how to respond to that. My MOS, I served 4 years in the Marine Corps, rifleman, 0300. Nothing near that danger. Wow.
You're constantly irritability, trouble sleeping. Like it felt like I was dying. It was sold to you. Like,
interesting enough, like when I came back from my second tour, I had a hard time sleeping. It was difficult for me to sleep. Yeah, that's something I had a problem with after my second tour. I mean, not so much now, but that's something I remember in my early 20s.
They knew how bad it was. They didn't try hiding it. They just didn't care what it was doing to their bodies until it caught up with them. This job is amazing enough to keep doing it until you can't physically anymore, is basically what some of the old heads told you.
I'm trying to go over the peace sign for like bunny ears, but instead it looks like I'm trying to use Jedi mind tricks on you.
Wow.
I was working at Toys R Us as a stalker.
Funny enough, in a previous video I was reacting to, there was a knockoff Toys R Us store in there. Wow. So this guy used to work at Toys R Us back in the day.
Not stalking in Toys R Us, but like, but like a shelf stalker. Probably not a good thing to stalk inside Toys R Us with all the children around. Probably not the model employee or the guy that you would expect to end up on gunships, because I was just a big stoner.
What was the point where you were like, I'm done with Toys R Us? Because I feel like you just want to get away from them. Oh.
Okay. I said I wouldn't laugh, and I'm kind of surprised. All right, there's a little bit of lightheartedness in this video. Okay. We're gonna be going on a roller coaster of emotions then. Okay. So he got fired. He got fired from his job at Toys. How'd you pull that off, buddy?
I got fired from Toys R Us. Pretty sure like it factored in the fact that I showed up every day stoned to like a kid-friendly establishment.
Yeah,
like
pretty
a year
much.
Out of high school, my life's going nowhere fast because I was like, everyone who graduates high school, they're like, I'll do something in like a year and I'll be like a young hot millionaire and whatever. I'm not just gonna wake up one day with like a $1 million idea. I've got to start, you know, doing something
with my life. Yeah.
My uncle, he kind of runs like a.
I felt like that too when I graduated from high school. Like, I thought about going to college when I graduated, but the reason why I didn't was because when I looked at the price tag, I'm like, how the fuck am I ever going to afford this? And I don't want to go to school again. You know, I just wanted to do something drastically different than the rest of my family. And I remember just deciding, you know, fuck it, I'll just join the Marine Corps. You know, my father, he served in the Marine Corps during Vietnam. My grandpa's cousin served in World War II. He was a Marine. My great grandfather, he was a soldier, U.S. Army, and he was part of the, I forget what parts of the Siberian expedition he was part of, but I have his discharge papers. So yeah, he was part of that expedition before the Bolsheviks won the war. All right. And I know I made a promise not to pause, but I'm going to let the video continue to play. I've just automatically, I could relate to the commentator.
A body shop. One day he came to visit us and he kind of pulled me aside and he's like, hey man, what are you doing with your life? Look at your dad. He was in the military. Your mom was in the military. They're successful. And I'm about to be foreclosed on my house because my body shop's going under because I'm 40 years old and I can't, my body just can't keep up with the amount of work I have to do to keep a roof over my head. I actually hated the military in all aspects of it. Was never going to do it. Swore that I would not follow my parents' footsteps. And then that's exactly what I did. My dad's in like $100K plus paying job in like the government. My mom was retired and she was working for the civilian sector. And she was about to get like her military retirement on top of the 10 years of civilian service. So she was about to have 2 retirements. And I looked at them and I'm like, wow, okay, they're successful and they went in the military and I have no direction. Maybe the military will give me that direction if it worked for my parents.
Is your uncle okay now? Did he find a way back on his feet?
He's still got his roof over his head, but he's still doing body shop work and he's like lost all of his teeth.
Oh
He's
my
kind of
God.
addicted to painkillers to like get through the day. We're pretty sure he has like lung cancer and just won't go to the doctor because he can't afford it. I had the whole scoop about like the military going in. I was like, it's going to suck. And I knew it was going to suck. I talked to my dad about it and like everyone else I knew. It's going to suck, but you're going to miss it when you're out. And they were right. I do miss it a little bit. When I went into the recruiting office, I did my ASVAB and it was high enough
miss it
where,
too.
like basically any job on the list you can get. I put Loadmaster in there. I put in ATC. If you get out and you do air traffic controlling, you can make a lot of money. My mom told me, and this is like the one thing she told me that was wrong, you don't have to pick 5 jobs. You only have to pick 4. I walked in there only with 4 jobs, and the recruiter was like, you only have 4 jobs on here. And I'm like, I only need 4. And he's like, no, that's Air Force regulation. You need to pick 5 jobs on your dream sheet. And I looked down the list, and nothing really jumped out at me. What's aerial gunner? And he's like, I think you shoot guns out of planes. And I'm like, oh, well, okay. It's my 5th pick. I'm probably not going to get it. Whoop. Wrote it down in there. And that was my 5th pick. And then like 2 weeks later, I got a call from the recruiter. And they're like, hey, man, you're going to be psyched. I got this job for you. Guess what it is? And I'm like, I don't know. What is it? And he's like, aerial gunner. And I'm like, okay, so what is that exactly again? He's like, you're going to be a gunner on like HH-60s or the Pablo or the AC-130. The AC-130 from like Modern Warfare 2. And he's like, yeah, man. And then I got really into it. I started.
See, I hated those recruiters that hyped you up. See, my recruiter, He was cool. He said to me, I'll never forget this. He said these words to me that still resonate to this day. He just looked at me and said, "You're either going to hate the Marine Corps or you're going to like the Marine Corps. And if you're able to do what you're told, get out. You will miss it." And yes, I do miss it a little bit. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. You know, there are its moments where I look back and say, yep, those were some fun adventures. Good old North Carolina. Camp Lejeune. Scratch that. You ever see me back in North Carolina, you know I screwed up. You just keep right the fuck on driving. You see me in North Carolina, you just keep on driving. You just keep right the fuck on driving.
We're playing Modern Warfare a lot more than I already had been. Kill streak at the top is the gunship. Just religiously tried to get the gunship in every game. The perfect position for talking about gunships, the fetal position. I was kind of lazy. I didn't do any like the push-ups or like the run before I went to basic training. I didn't just smoke weed. I smoked Marlboro Reds. So
damn, bro.
Basic training, like super out of shape, man. Couldn't do like 15 push-ups to save my life.
Holy
and I showed
shit.
up to basic training with Vans, the little flat skater shoes. They make you go out there and do a mock physical training test. I came in at like over 16 and a half minutes or something like that on the run, which is not good. It's like 10 something to pass basic training. Came in like super unhealthy and shitty. I was like marching like this, my hands swinging together rather than like doing this. My TI would always like, "Struggle, what the fuck are you doing?" Like, just do it naturally. Just walk naturally. Walk like a human being, Struggle. There's this like big ceremony after you like graduate the aerial gunner course. They take all the people that have graduated on stage. They give you your silver wings. They have like metal pins on the back sides of them. The old tradition was they punch it in. Those team needles would go into your chest, earning your wings through blood kind of thing. Punch them on so hard that they'll never come off. They stopped doing it because it was like hazing, and there was like a big push in the Air Force to like not haze people anymore. But my dad could do it because my dad's family. He punched me so hard that I like walked back 3 steps on the stage. So after we got done with the land sear and like the water sear, I went to my first duty station, Herbert Field, Florida, headquarters of Air Force Special Operations Command, and I was psyched. I wasn't considered what was like permanent party yet. I hadn't gotten through training to the point where they would consider me like a full-fledged member of the Air Force. I was still on probation kind of thing. That was just a schoolhouse of getting into the books, having to learn like technical data about guns on the aircraft. What's the fire rate? Do you know the cycle of ops? A failure to fire? What are the malfunction steps to do to deal with that? We've actually lost quite a few gunships in like history. We lost Jockey 1-4 in Somalia during the Black Hawk Down incident. We lost Spirit 03 because they got shot down by like a man-pad. From the legacy, there's also the lessons that have been learned on gunships. You know, don't fly during the daytime because you're a low, slow-flying aircraft flying in a circle. Probably not a good idea to fly during the daytime when also doing that maneuver, because then it's like, and they can clearly just line up AAA or a man-pad on you and just shoot you down. Not to say that we didn't fly daytime missions, we did, but like, we tried not to. Until Air Force brass came down and like, "You're gonna fly this mission because we need you." Well, we'll push back and we'll be like, "There's a good chance if we fly during the daytime that we're gonna get shot down. Like, I hope you're cool with that."
And they sometimes just force on, like,
high command, the officers, the brass, they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit. You know, a lot of those them shiny boys just don't know what's going on.
Like, you're gonna be flying during the day?
Yeah, they tried to get us to fly daytime when I was in Kuwait, and ISIS at this time still had 56 millimeter anti-aircraft artillery and like man-pads and stuff that they had gotten. Afghanistan wasn't so bad. We flew daytime missions there.
Oh, wow. So this guy served in Iraq and Afghanistan. Whew. All right. Kudos to you, brother. Tip my hat to you.
There, because the Taliban had 23 millimeter anti-aircraft, which really couldn't hit us in our orbit unless they put it on top of a mountain.
Okay.
Which they did sometimes to try to trap us in a valley. I mean, it never worked for them, but they tried. All the time through training, they were telling us, "Hey, you know you're going to kill people, right?" Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm here for in this job. It was repeated like multiple times. "Hey, you're going to kill people. Hey, you're going to kill people. Hey, you're going to kill people." And then got shipped out to my first trip to Afghanistan in 2011, 2012 timeframe.
when you first start out and then get you to your main base, you actually live in dorms, right? I literally thought my dorm was cursed, but I realized we were just all gunship guys. The guy that I took his room, he had a stroke. 23-year-old had.
Holy shit, 23 years old had a stroke? Oh, man. Oh, my God. I'm 37 right now, man. 23 years old. Oh, my God.
Had a stroke, the guy I took the room from. The guy across from me, he ended up getting near constant headaches to the point of like he couldn't function. A guy down the hall started getting like epileptic seizures, and the other guy at the end of the hall, he shook. He literally got something where he had like the shakes all the time, like Parkinson's. And I'm like the only one out of that specific time frame of guys that didn't have some neurological disorder happen to him. When you're young, you have a little bit of a mortality complex. So like I didn't expect anything to happen to me. I'm like, well, obviously they had health problems, whatever. There was a point when I was in gunships where I was like, you know, I'm probably going to die of like cancer, and that's cool.
That's pretty metal.
Wow. First, you know, I just want to point out, you know, I'm just going to just say something, just how I feel. But, you know, the VA deserves more funding, and we need to start looking at really taking care of our veterans. You know, their suicide rates are at their highest because a lot of these veterans are dealing with medical issues and psychological issues that have severely impacted them. My 2 tours in Iraq, everyone came home alive and well in one piece. My MOS was infantry. Never got in a firefight. Never saw combat. Everyone came home alive. Both tours. I'm just going to speak for myself, my experience, right? Because every patrol had something different. You know, so I'm just speaking for myself here. But in my unit, 200 plus guys, we all came home. So fuck winning the lottery. That's the real lottery. Everyone came home. And there's a lot of soldiers and airmen and Marines that have not come home. And there are those who have come home but still carry these scars and the wounds, both physical and mental, from their time serving overseas. And I think this country could do a lot more for its veterans. I mean, yes, there's always Memorial Day and 4th of July and thank you for your service and Veterans Day and all of that. But, you know, suicide rates are going up and up and up. And more should be done. And yet these politicians who say they care don't do anything. So, yeah. All right, I'm going to be quiet now because I might get angry. I might yell. I don't want to do that right now. I wasn't expecting laughs and jokes in this video, especially with Anakin Skywalker and Winnie the Pooh. All right.
I stepped off in Kandahar, had like that oh shit moment. I'm in a fucking combat zone. Increased adrenaline, the tunnel vision's coming in because I'm like, that whole first night I walked around in like a daze. There was one time where we got rocket attack every 30 minutes. The Taliban had set up on this ridge outside of Kandahar all these little mortars and rockets and stuff. They'd used ice as a timer. They had figured out how to put enough ice in there that when it would melt, it would be 30 minutes when the primer would strike on the projectile and then it would go off. So they just knew how much ice to put in there. They did that one night where it was just like, boom, rocket, 30 minutes would go by and like all the people would scurry around base looking for a UXO or what the impact site of the rocket was.
Right.
Once they found it or they didn't find it, they would give the all clear.
And they had perfectly timed it because it took us about 30 minutes to like do a full base wide sweep for projectiles. As soon as we gave it all clear, the next rocket would go off. It freaked me out, like, I'm not gonna lie. Okay, there's probably like a rocket coming in. I'll just run out to the bunker. The other gunship guys, they laughed at me. Why are you freaking out? They laughed at me basically because I was like doing what I was supposed to go to bunker. Their threat tolerance was way off the fucking charts. They just didn't give a shit in most regards. There was a time we were at Chow Hall and we had an incoming rocket. The whole entire like Chow Hall drops to the floor except the gunship guys just sit there at their table just eating their mashed potatoes or whatever the fuck. Combat pay was prorated for like hostile fire stuff. And you could pay more for getting shot at. As we went on, it's like, score, they shot at us.
So was there a lot of talk there about the politics of it back home?
There were guys that wanted to talk the politics about it. At that time, I was kind of young and I was kind of disinterested. We would talk about like how we funded the Taliban to fight Russia. It was kind of karma that we would have to fight the enemy we created, kind of thing. So let me set this up. I don't know if they were a QRF, a quick response force, but they were all like a convoy and they were driving up the side of this mountain. There's a sheer drop off like right here to the valley below. Above it, there's like this cresting ridge. We're below the alpine level, so there's trees up here too. The convoy is going and an RPG hits the lead vehicle in like the tire well. The tire explodes, but like everyone inside of it's fine. They're meant to withstand explosions. So like these guys dismount from this convoy and they're just shooting up the ridge line. It all happened really quick. I was like on the 105. You think like these shells are pretty dumb. They just explode on impact, right? The PGU-45 actually had a radar in it. And when you shot it, these two little like cylinders in there would match up and it would basically form a battery that would start powering this radar and it would start sending out pings 15 feet above ground. It would explode. It would send out like this umbrella shrapnel that was like .22 caliber size, approximately 14,000 pieces of it. Well, that was what it was supposed to do. What it actually did was it failed. The radar failed. I don't know if like it was just faulty or if it sat in inventory too long. So this thing smacks straight into the middle of the tree and just rips it apart. And the tree falls over and it crushes two insurgents that were right below it, taking shelter and firing from it. My first death was by tree. I killed a tree and then two people under it. I went to my room and I was ready to process. I put some music on and I just like laid there and I was waiting for, I don't know, some kind of human emotion. Because, you know, you watch Hollywood movies where like someone kills someone like for the first time and they're like shook up about it. I was sitting there and on my bed listening to this music and I was just like, is it weird that I don't feel anything? What's going on here? I should feel some kind of way about what just happened, but like I don't. And I think over the years I've come to realize like what it was. I was like told you're going to kill people, you're going to kill people, you're going to kill people. I had already had like internalized that message and like accepted that was going to be the conclusion. That's what I was going to do.
Do you ever think just like as you're going about your civilian life back to lives you've taken?
There was a mission in the Helmand River Valley on that same trip. And if I'm going to tell this story, I want to tell it in its entirety. The Helmand River Valley was always kind of like a hot spot. Obama had like authorized this general for like a troop surge, one final push into Afghanistan. But because the war was ending, they had started tightening up the rules of engagement, making it harder to shoot enemies, but also like specific targets were like near impossible. You couldn't shoot a building without direct authorization from like the guy in charge of all of Afghanistan. I had been flying these Helmand River Valley missions for like 5 days in a row. And I wasn't expecting anything to happen because nothing had happened the 5 days previously. This ground party of Marines with their JTAC, they pushed down this little dirt road.
All right, so Joint Terminal Attack Controller.
This whole town that they were going into was kind of like sunken below the typical...
I guess a little heads up. When you're watching this video, or if you watch the original video, the acronyms are going to be in the top corner area. So there you go.
Elevation of like the
I just noticed
area.
that.
At the end of the road, there was like a wadi, like a creek. And on the side, they had like a little bit of the wall of the, like this town. As soon as like the first guy crossed that wall into the town, he started getting lit up by this 2-story mud brick building from like the top window. There was nowhere for these guys to go. Rules of engagement at the time was like, if they could get out of there, don't engage the enemy, just like let sleeping dogs lie, whatever. They went up to the right, they'd go up that embankment and their backs would be to this guy who was shooting at them. If they went back up the road, they would lose the cover of the wall because they basically walk up above it. And if they went into the creek, there was no guarantee that there wasn't a window on the other side of this 2-story that could just shoot them while they were crossing this creek. These guys were just stuck here behind this mud brick wall. With these AKs, it was basically turning this wall into Swiss cheese while they were behind it, losing their cover. I'll never, oh God, this mission's hard to talk about. It's the only time I've heard a joint task air controller like lose his cool over the radio. He called up and he was just like, if you don't get rounds down right now, we're going to die. And it's like, and I'm not doing justice to how it sounded because there was like a crack in his voice and it was real like, you could hear like the sheer panic in this dude's voice. It was just the crack of it and everything. I had to sit there and watch because like these guys were in a building and we're not allowed to shoot buildings. We tried to tell the ground force commander like, hey, these guys are taking accurate fire. They can't retreat. We need to shoot this building. And he's like, I'm not giving you my authorization to strike that building. If there's civilians in there, that's on my head. We had an internal discussion on the crew, like we could declare self-defense for these guys, but if there's any civilians in there, we weren't willing to really accept that risk to put that on our own heads. We had to get in touch with headquarters back in Bagram and tell them what was going on. And then those guys had to send a runner to get the literal commander of all the forces in Afghanistan of NATO. Then they had to bring him up to speed on what was happening, answer all his questions, and then get the authorization from him to strike the building. The entire time, I'm fuming. We have the capability to stop what we're watching right now, and we're not using it. That's what our mission was. Our purpose is to save ground parties' lives. I was seeing red. Like, it's the most mad I've ever been in my life. Going through that experience, I actually know that there's a difference between, like, anger and, like, wrath. That's what I was feeling. Like, I felt like I could just rip out the side of the fuselage of the gunship, jump down out of the sky and, like, fucking sucker punch these Taliban in the face. That's how mad I was that I would do something irrational like that. And so we eventually got the authorization to strike this building. Not 2 rounds into the 105 and like a couple 40s out of the 40 millimeter, we get this ceasefire call. And I'm like, the fuck are we doing? Let's level that bitch, turn it into a fucking dirt parking lot. Then they come over and they're like, women and children are squirting from the building. Which squirting just means run away. Oh that God. Moment, it was like, what? No. There's terrorists.
Jesus. Wow. What? Ooh. You know, he's telling the story, and you can only imagine what was happening. I don't even know what to say. Wow.
In there's no women and children. What the fuck? What? Couldn't process it. And I don't know, man. I've thought about that like multiple times over like the course of my life. It's like, what could we have done to like prevent that? That was a perfect ambush on their part, from the setup to like where they got trapped behind the wall. I think about it and I'm like, the only thing that could have stopped it is if like we didn't get that push, we didn't get that surge, or the ore ended earlier. That was like, I don't know, that was a box that we got stuck into. And I guess I came back from that trip. Well, not I guess. I came back from that trip pretty messed up mentally. I had this civilian casualty mission. And I knew it was bad because they had to bring in medical evacuation helicopters to like take them out. But I never wanted to know how many there were. It was kind of like a spiral at first. Like the entire time I was deployed, it wasn't affecting me mentally because I had like a mission to direct all my mental attention. But when I came back and after my family had visited me and left, it was like the first time I'd been alone with my thoughts about that mission. And I thought about it and I was like, okay, that's natural. Like it was pretty fucked up. At this point, I'd already kind of like thought, oh, I guess I just don't feel remorse. But truly what the real thing is like, I was like repressing it all. This mission kind of like built up so much pressure. I couldn't uncork it on my own. I was like, if I can't stop thinking about it, obviously something's wrong about it. I was hesitating at that point to like throw around like the PTSD word. I didn't want to admit that I could have something messed up mentally with myself.
All right.
I was like, all right.
You know, you know, I remember there was a big stigma, especially when I was serving, about PTSD. And look, something that's very serious. And, you know, if you're a veteran and you're struggling with it, it's okay to ask for help. You know, my 2 tours, I got very, very lucky. Everyone I served with came home on those 2 tours, and that's, I don't know, call it luck, call it a miracle. I don't know. I don't even know what to call it anymore, but everyone came home. But there's a lot of soldiers and Marines and other servicemen, men and women, who are dealing with a lot, with the emotional scars. And like I said, you know, earlier in the video, a lot more can be done by our leaders to make sure that the VA has enough adequate resources, maybe do more. Yeah. This is a fun video to react to. Talk about a roller coaster ride, and I can imagine what he's dealing with. My goodness. And even then with the video itself, Winnie the Pooh and Anakin Skywalker. Last 2 people I would ever expect talking about surfing overseas in Afghanistan.
So we're going to do this my way. And I went out and I bought like a 5th of Crown. And I went home and I fucking uncorked it because I knew it was a depressant and I was going to drink it, tap into those feelings, like release the pressure on the dam and just like whatever. Well, that was a bad move because as soon as I unbottled those repressed emotions, basically bawled like a baby for like 4 hours that night. And it didn't really stop after that. I thought like I'd wake up the next morning and, oh, cool, I had a good cry. It's out of my system. Immediately afterwards, okay, I'm thinking about the mission, but I'm thinking about the mission because I'm thinking about how I uncorked that emotion. And then it was like, okay, stop thinking about the mission. Stop thinking about it. It just bounced around in my head all day for like months. It was bringing me to like my breaking point. Easier for me to admit now than it was then because like I was very prideful. Admitting that I have a mental problem was like never a place I was going to go. It got pretty dark there for a while. I couldn't even like decompress. What I had done before in my free time was like watch movies and play video games. And like I would watch a movie and like think about that mission because there'd be like some small scene that would remind me of like what had happened in the Helmand River Valley. Or I'd play a video game and it'd be violent and I would think about, you know, what happened there. Everything led back to that mission. I couldn't go to like mental health or anything because then I wouldn't be able to fly. They would take me off flying orders to deal with that. It felt like I would be letting down the rest of the gunship community, or I'd be letting down the ground parties deployed. And I realize now that like the Air Force would have always filled my slot, but at the time, like I felt like I owed it to like the taxpayer, to the ground party, to my fellow gunners and the gunship community as a whole for, you know, I felt like I owed everyone without like feeling like I owed myself anything. I was drinking to feel sad and to not think about it. At least when I was drinking, like I felt like I was in control, which really was the dumbest thing to think when I was like going through this, because I wasn't in control of it at all. And drinking was not helping at all. It didn't matter. I was just doing it anyways. Like I did initially try to drink with other people, but I realized that I wanted to fight other people I drank around, which is a new thing. I drank before that and I was always a happy drunk, but like after this, when I drank, I wanted to fight my friends, special forces guys that I ran into at like the bar. And I realized that like, I don't want to fight my friends and like the other people that I work with. I just kind of withdrew from that party drinking because it wasn't partying anymore for me.
Okay. I'll say words. I'm speechless. Very interesting video to react to. It's a story that maybe a lot of people aren't too familiar with, and You know, it's a little bit different to what we react to here at Chicago Reacts, but I think it's important that we see this perspective, that we hear the stories from these people who have served. Because in many ways, we still have to get the word out about PTSD, about all of the mental and physical wounds that a lot of servicemen and women are dealing with. I think in many ways, veterans should have access to free healthcare in this country. They should have access to any hospital they go to. The VA should be properly funded. If you look at how, you know, programs here in the United States, social programs that are, you know, funded, VA gets very little. As I mentioned before, veterans, you know, are dealing with a lot, and this is a little bit close to home for me. That was a heavy story to listen to, and I found it interesting that the creator, I want to get their name right. Let's see their name. Syrmor. I think that's a YouTube channel, Syrmor. I find it interesting that they edited the video in that way with, I guess, cartoon characters that we all know. Anakin Skywalker from the Clone Wars and Winnie the Pooh as the interviewer, I guess. I would like to see more videos like this. And if this is the end of part 1, then we as a community have to see part 2. See where it goes from here. So there we go. All right. So, to all the people watching here, Chicago Reacts, thank you so much for joining us here as we are reacting to this video. I'm going to make a promise to react to more videos like this, so they won't be all happy-go-lucky. There were moments in this video where there were some funny moments, but they were warranted to laugh at because, you know, both individuals were sharing jokes here and there. So there we go. So some lightheartedness, but talk about a roller coaster ride. There we go. All right. My name is Kit with Chicago Reacts. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and also check out the original video as well if you have time, and give it a like as well. Peace, and take good care of yourselves.